back to The Bookish Wolf. This is Freya and I'm Josh, and today we will be talking about The Night Guest by Marina Scott. So the opening scene actually is Freya running through the hallway for her daily treat, which would not be creepy at all. Yet the way it's edited makes it somehow feel weirdly unsettling, which honestly matches the vibes of The Night Guest. So much of this book feels like that. Normal things, but with something off about them that makes you feel a bit uneasy. So for those of you who are here for the quick review, The Night Guest is set in 1903 Omaha, Nebraska, and follows Nina, our narrator, as her father's death leaves her family drowning in debt. Her mother begins to lose her mind, and a mysterious medium arrives and makes his presence known. Nina eventually finds a way to make a substantial amount of money in a maybe legitimate way, but also a manipulative way. With ghosts, spiritualisms, a house that feels alive, and some seriously good plot twists, I give this book an 8 out of 10. So now we're going to get into the spoilers. Well, definitely not the ending because I want you guys to actually read this one. Horror and suspense usually are not our go-to genres. I tend to avoid them, and definitely you will not catch us watching a horror movie in the dark. Honestly, if me and Freya were in a horror story, I'd be looking for her for protection. The second I heard a weird noise or something in the dark, the scene would probably go a little something like this. Hey Freya, I named you after the goddess of war. And we would probably be dead, because that's what she does. So picking up The Night Guest was definitely a step out of our usual comfort zone. When I saw it on Amazon's first reads list last October, I thought a free book was the perfect excuse to start a different genre. And honestly, I'm glad I did. We begin the book at a seance, and from the start it's clear that the story is deeply shaped by Nina's perspective because she narrates it herself. Everything we learn from her family, from the views of Omaha, and to the people around her are coming from her lens, which means it will carry all her biases. At this first seance, Nina is skeptical of the whole thing. She really is only there because her mother wants to go, hoping that she'll be able to hear from Nina's father. We learn early on that he has died, and his gambling addiction has surfaced, and it's safe to say that he was not the greatest at this, leaving the family buried in debt. Even though Nina doubts anything real will happen, something actually strange does happen to her during the seance. She sees a boy who looks as though he's coming from a storm, which he's fully dressed with water puddled at his feet. The unsettling part is that nobody else sees him. So meanwhile, Leroy Marshall, the medium speaking at this seance, and which is a character I enjoyed, first speaks to a grieving father whose son has drowned. So Nina thinks that the boy she's seeing was just her mind going along with the seance and nothing more. He then turns to Nina's mother and tells her that her husband is present. Oh, I forgot to mention, before the whole seance, he had everyone write letters to their loved ones and to seal them up in an envelope. After Nina tells the mother this, he then holds up that letter and says, Bert still reads them. All the letters she writes to him. And at this moment, Nina's mother is so overwhelmed she just faints right there on the floor. And this is all in chapter 1. Are you kidding me? This is what hooked me to the book. So in this scene, we learn Nina's mother still writes letters to her dead husband. Leroy may actually have supernatural abilities, and Nina sees dead people. This, again, is all in chapter 1. After this, we learn about the impact of her father's death. Before his death, which happened in a horse carriage crash during a storm, Nina's family, the Wilsons, had been part of Omaha's high society and were especially close to a family called the Hollands. Nina and Lizzie Holland had been close friends, and Nina was also engaged to a guy named Bobby Walker. And the discovery of his debt, the family lost a lot of status in Omaha. The engagement was called off. The Wilsons were no longer considered Omaha's elite, and one thing that we learned throughout the whole thing is that Nina knows how to hold a grudge. She never forgot that almost no one came to her father's funeral. So Freya, I know you may be asking, does Nina have any relatives or friends that could help her out? Well, I'm glad you asked, Freya. Nina did have family. She had a twin brother named Amos. Where was he? Unfortunately, he was away in New England studying. Amos wasn't even at his father's funeral, We learn this through the letters Nina writes to him, where she mentions that she still writes even though he isn't allowed to write back to her. Okay, what kind of school is he at where he can't write home? And also, what son doesn't come back to his father's own funeral? This was one of the first points where I started to realize that just something wasn't adding up here. So after the seance, Nina's mother stops eating and barely speaks, which leaves Nina a little more desperate to find a solution both for her mother's condition and the growing financial problems. She turns to the only housekeeper they have left, Tilda, who agrees to stay with the family in exchange for room and board instead of wages. As a result, Nina grows very close to Tilda because she's the only person Nina has left. Trying to take some control of the situation, Nina decides to sell some of the family's jewelry, since they have a lot of jewelry since they were the elites. She asks Tilda if she knows somewhere she can do this discreetly, because the last thing Nina wants is for word of how desperate her situation is. Tilda does know a place, though it's not a place Omaha's high society is wanting to be seen in. So the two of them head down to Douglas Street, where we get a glimpse of the cribs. It's basically the city's red light district. Tilda leads Nina to a broker who agrees to take the jewelry, but instead of handing them cash, he gives them a note that simply says, "Now owe $300." At this point, Nina realizes her father's debt wasn't owed to a respectable gambling place, I guess, if there is one, but it's owed to the people here in the cribs. And this just leaves Nina just feeling hopeless, right? She tries to sell her stuff off and just learns she just owes even more money besides the bills that she needs to take care of for the house. Throughout all of this, Nina starts to find her father's clothes just randomly laid out of the house, almost as if he's just undressing himself and leaving things behind. Her mother is also writing letters to the dad still, except for this time she's burning them at his grave, and she's writing these letters almost every day. Nina realizes she needs to do something to help her mother move past her husband's death, so she turns to Tilda for advice. The two of them go walking across the land that the family still owns, and during that walk they come across an older farm that the father had purchased. It's abandoned now because the father of that land had passed away with the son during a drowning accident. Tilda tells Nina that their deaths left that land corrupted, and she says something that really is strange, right? She says some places aren't meant to be lived in. So Nina confides in Tilda that she wants to ask Leroy to come and help her mother move on. But the plan is basically to have him make up a story from beyond the veil, and to tell the mother that Bert has moved on and that she needs to do the same. To do this, though, Nina has to go back to the Hollands because Leroy is staying with them at this time. And again, the Hollands don't associate with the Wilsons much anymore. So when she does go back, they give her a cold reception and they're distant towards her. Leroy is unsurprisingly not thrilled that Nina assumes that his work is fake or that he can fake it. So she's pretty much calling him a charlatan. But when Nina tells him about the boy she saw at the seance, that clearly catches his attention. But what makes this moment pretty interesting is that he seems surprised that she saw the boy. Leroy never actually tells Nina that he saw the boy or he didn't see the boy, which makes the whole thing just seem weird. So at this point, I didn't know what to believe. One, Nina was seeing the ghost, right, for herself, but yet she doesn't believe Leroy can actually speak to the dead. And meanwhile, Nina is moving closer to believing, while us as the readers are doing the exact opposite and becoming a little skeptical of Leroy. He just seems far too surprised that she's able to see the ghost, and the reaction he made, just there's something more about him that he's not letting on. So guess who ends up moving into the Dawning? Yeah, I forgot to mention, they named the house the Dawning. I guess in the early 1900s, you named your house. But yes, guess who's moving in? Mr. Leroy himself. At this point, Leroy has moved into the Dawning, and Nina's mother has become completely devoted to this guy. She spends her evenings alone with him, in the father's study, behind closed doors, laughing, speaking in hushed voices. She stopped openly grieving, which I guess is the point of Leroy moving in. But then she starts wearing her wedding dress as if she's waiting for some kind of spiritual reunion with her husband Bert. And this is where one of the creepiest parts of the story happens. I'm going to read it for you. She doesn't respond. She doesn't pause her walking. I follow her down the hallway, down the stairs. The old floorboards screech under her bare feet all the way to father's study. She closes the door behind her, but she does not lock it. Is Leroy waiting for her inside? I wait a few moments before slowly turning the handle and pushing the door open. I take a couple steps and freeze. My chest clenched so tight I cannot inhale. Mother stands against the far wall behind father's desk. In the corner, she's staring at the wood paneling. I expect her to turn to look at me, but she remains unmoved, facing the corner. Maybe she doesn't hear me come inside. Maybe she doesn't care I'm standing in the room with her. I don't know what to think or what to do. Mother, my own breath freezes in my throat. I feel like I'm being thrown into a dust storm. Time shattering into tiny fragments and the air swirling and whirling around me, squeezing my chest. I need to get to Leroy. I need to go get Leroy. I don't know how to deal with this. Mother doesn't move, her breath's coming out fast, her panting loud. I step forward. Mother seems to be oblivious to my presence. I take a few more steps and place a hand so very lightly on her skinny, trembling shoulders. At my touch, she whips around her wild eyes. At my touch, she whips around her eyes wild. She takes one look at me, an uncertain and confused look at first that morphs quickly into fear, and then, her mouth agape, white teeth glinting in the dark, she starts screaming, a cry, starting low and rising in agony. It's coming from deep inside her chest, as if there's something alive and desperate and terrified, her trapped soul trying to claw its way out. So as this is all going on, this is where the house starts to become alive. At least Nina is noticing more and more strange things around the house. The hallways seem to change lanes, and Nina notices that the number of steps from her bedroom to the kitchen aren't the same. One day it's 53 feet, another day it's 25 steps. All the silverware in the house end up turning black except for the ones Nina is using, and all the wooden crosses her mother hung on the house to keep the evil spirits away have been turned upside down. But also, why is there just more than one cross in the hallways? At one point, Nina sees the drowned boy again. This time, he is pressed up against the kitchen window from the outside of the dawning. And this part is creepy. His face is flattened against the glass, his eyes are completely black, and his mouth is stretched open. Then he starts throwing himself against the window over and over again. The window cracks, and he starts giggling and points at Nina's mother. Nina's mother, however, doesn't hear any of this while she is also in the kitchen with Nina at this time. And after the mom leaves, Nina goes to check the window. Window's fine. No crack. No face prints on it, completely fine. Even the house itself starts to feel wrong. The air is more stagnant than a minute ago. It feels almost spongy as it caresses my neck a little differently. It slithers under my skin deeper and deeper until there is an odd itch. My limbs are heavy, but my head is dizzy. Every cell in my body twitches. I take a shallow breath and Opa's head turns slowly towards me. I forgot to mention that this was a painted portrait of her Opa. So when all this is happening, Nina asks Tilda if she's noticed all the changes, and Tilda agrees and believes the house has taken on some changes. She believes that the father's sins have been taken in by the house, and she turns angry and she warns Nina that the dead are moving inside the walls. Again, she says that same phrase, places aren't meant to be lived in. That's great. Just, Tilda, you need to cool it down. Nina then confronts Leroy about the changes in the house and asks why he hasn't mentioned any of these phenomena. He responds with this.
What has she noticed? A leaky roof? A peeling wallpaper? The foundation that is slanted and cracked? I see it too, but I don't think I should point it out so bluntly. I'm a guest here, and it's not my place to talk about the condition of your house. There's something desperate in his face when he says, we can't always trust what we see or what we feel. We need proof. Feelings are not proof.
Again, something just doesn't seem to be adding up with Mr. Leroy. Is he just that nice of a person to not point out these things? Or is he up to something? Through all this, Nina still writes to Amos, telling him everything that's going on and still getting no response. Slowly, we start to see the real tension in the center of this story. Is Nina becoming unstable? Is she going mad? Or is she generally attuned to something supernatural? That is the question that is just continued out through the whole book that you have to wonder about. And this is where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it to you guys. If you want to find out how Nina deals with her father's debt, you're going to have to read it for yourself. What I will say, though, is Nina ends up getting a hold of something pretty valuable to have leverage over the very people who turn their backs on her family. Especially the same people who didn't bother to show up to her father's funeral. And from there, things just get even more strange. What happens to Nina and the rest of the characters will definitely leave you questioning, was any of this real? Or was just Nina losing her mind in the end? And that's it for The Night Guest. Let me know down below if you're interested in reading this book. If you've read this book, I would like to know if you believed in what was happening or not. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Freya and I will be back soon with another video and hopefully something a little less haunting. See you next time.